Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Hootie Who KSU football podcast. I don't even know what to say. No, we'll get into it. You'll see some videos probably prior to me talking from the game. I was up at the game on Friday night. That is a loss 10-9 final. There's so many things to say about this, so I just went back through my notes before hopping on, just so I was kind of refreshed. There's a lot of college football yesterday, so I watched a lot of college football. So I'm going back just to kind of remind myself a little bit about what I had witnessed Friday night up there at Wake Forest. A couple things to get out of the way. First and foremost is that the experience going up to Wake Forest was a good one. I enjoyed it a great deal. It's a cool campus. The football stadium's off campus a little bit, but when you go to the campus up there, a historic university, kind of a pocket of just beauty in a town that is a fine town. Winston-Salem is a fine town, but an older town. You can kind of see that a little bit. Some buildings showing their age. It's not really been modernized much, but going over to the campus at Wake Forest was stunning. It's a beautiful school. Had a great time out there. I took both my boys up there to see the game, so they had a good time walking around the campus, kind of touring it a little bit. So it was a lot of fun. And hats off to the fans of Wake Forest. They were nothing but decent. I mean, we were in the Wake Forest section. I was surrounded by Wake Forest fans on all sides with my Kennesaw State gear representing. And no one said anything to me, but I'm not one to be obnoxious either. Just trying to be a respectful, away fan, if you will. And most people are fine with that. I mean, you do have those fan bases that'll just beat you down a little bit. But Wake Forest certainly wasn't one. They were definitely concerned about what was taking place in the game, which I'll kind of get into in a little bit. But like I said, I thought that the stadium was nice. It wasn't a big stadium, but it was a cool stadium. It was well done. Fans were engaged till halftime, you'd say. Then the students kind of took off around halftime to do whatever they were going to go do. But no, like I said, it was a good time. So getting to the game, honestly, a lot of positives. It should have been a win. And we kind of talked about that. I've talked about it since February. What I thought was, if there was a chance for an upset, it was the Wake Forest game, not the Indiana game. I wasn't wrong. I usually won't toot my own horn, but what I saw is in Wake Forest is kind of what I thought was going to happen. Is one, you have two on both sides. You have two new coaching staff. It's two new philosophies. A lot of rebuilding from the portal. So our seats were on the front row at the 10-yard line on the Wake Forest side. And just in pregame warm-ups, you could see the difference in size between the Wake Forest players and the Kennesaw State players. So immediately I was just like, this is what you're building to, if you will. You're building to the depth being of that size, not just your starting 11, but also second and third string. That's what every football program is building to. Now, Wake Forest is not a juggernaut by any means, but, I mean, it's a well-established program and who's been somewhat successful the last few years. Well, maybe not the last few years, but there was definitely success there at a period of time with what Wake Forest was working with. Now, Wake Forest has definitely gone away from investing into the football program and is more focused on baseball and basketball. There's no doubt. But they still are spending some money on football. I mean, you can see a lot of modernization of the stadium and the presentation that they had there. It's a small school as far as attendance-wise, student-wise. It's not a big school. It's not like a monster like a Georgia or, all those larger universities. I think Wake Forest's attendance is less than 10,000. I would have said less than 5,000, but I don't know. It's been a while since I've looked. But it's still a small school. A very prestigious academic school for sure. One other thing I want to go back to just the experience was that I noticed that the crowd was definitely older. Obviously, the students are on one side, but the surrounding crowd where I was definitely an older crowd, families for sure. The definitely a family atmosphere. Definitely, how about this? A small town feel of what you would see kind of at a high school football situation, like in Alabama, Texas, even big time support for a high school football program. You'd see the locals of the town, whether they have a child playing or not, coming out to support the team. Similar kind of vibe was that you had an older crowd, 65 plus, who were taking this in. And I told my wife that it felt to me that you didn't have a pro team around you, so what you did as a retiree or just a local in the community was this is your team, and you go and support all sporting activities with your team. And that's definitely the feel that this had, was that maybe they're alumni and just never left, or maybe these are just people who are locals that support their team, their local team. But it was definitely an older crowd, but a respectful crowd versus, if you're a away player. If you're an away fan coming to the stadium to take in a game, sometimes that can be a little dicey. You'll see things on TV where that one guy's on an island by himself and just getting hammered, And who knows? I mean, who knows what would have happened had the game been a blowout? Maybe that would happen, but I just didn't think that the fans were that personality. They just seemed like good people, and they were as kind as they could possibly be. Just a great game experience for a traveler. I have nothing but positive things to say about the experience of the game. So let's get into it a little bit. First drive, so I'm sitting there. I was just talking about the size of Wake Forest, and I definitely saw a difference in size. So the very first drive of the game, Wake Forest has the ball, drives down the field, gets a touchdown. And just the ease that they were kind of going through, I was like, here we go, right? Here we go. You got a more talented team, and you're just trying to hold on with less talented players. That was my initial feeling. After that first drive, though, that was it. That was a wrap, and I read that wrong, because KSU's defense was all over the place at that point and played just terrific. I mean, just great. I love when you are playing against a team that you're not supposed to be competitive against. I mean, let's not remember the spread was 17.5 of this game. And they come down and score immediately. And what do? You turn right back around, drive right down the field, and score again. You were unstoppable on that first drive as well. The tempo was there, right? I mean, just going fast, just moving so quickly. And Coleman Bennett ran just like a man possessed. I mean, you couldn't stop him. He was bouncing all over the place. 17-yard touchdown run was the lone touchdown for Kennesaw State, and just power. I mean, just power. Some deep passes as well from Washington, forgive me, Dexter Williams. Sorry, just some great throws. But it is still the first game. And always with the first game, it's not going to be quite as tight as you're going to want to see second, third game, and as the season goes on. And you see that a lot of times with special teams. And special teams was definitely a problem for Kennesaw State. You score the touchdown, and you miss the extra point. You can't miss an extra point there. You can't do it. You just can't. Then, as the game progresses, you kind of see this chess match going back and forth, with both defenses kind of locking down the offenses. Now, Kennesaw State did a much better job on defense overall than Wake Forest did. And you had the fans that were not pleased. You had fans around me that were not happy about Wake Forest's defense. They were not happy with some of the decisions made by their quarterback, who is the South Carolina transfer, who had a tendency to run out of bounds for no gains or a loss of 2 here or there. It was but he was running because he was running for his life, because the offensive line for Wake Forest was not holding up against the defense for Kennesaw State. Now, if I'm a Wake Forest fan, that sentence probably concerns me a great deal, but that's not my problem. The defense for Kennesaw State was flying all over the place. They were hitting. They were putting constant pressure on the quarterback, the 3-3-5. I'm a believer in. Just trying to figure out where the pressure is coming from. Wake Forest didn't take any deep shots, and I thought that might be the place that Kennesaw State would be susceptible to deep shots. But Wake Forest was only returning one wide receiver from last year's team, and their running back, their prized running back, he got hurt after 2 runs. He ran it twice in the first quarter, was out for a majority of the game, came back in and ran it, maybe 2 more times for no loss. I mean, we were right there. He wasn't going anywhere. And then he was done for the whole game. So yeah, I mean, the Wake Forest has got their own problems for sure, but I can't take away from the way Kennesaw State played. Like I said, Bennett was running like a man possessed for Kennesaw State. I think he probably got a little dinged up because Diggs came in a good bit of that game and ran hard, but there's definitely a difference between him and Bennett from what I saw up front. The quarterback play was fine. There's a couple errant throws or just throws not getting there, just nerves, just execution. But overall, quarterback play was solid for Kennesaw State. He was mobile. He was making plays with his legs as well. And they belonged. And that's the thing that I took away from that is they belonged in that game. They belonged in that environment. They moved the ball. They missed the extra point. They go down the field. Kennesaw State goes down the field again. And they kick a field goal. That gets missed. It wasn't a long field goal. It was from the 25, so 35-yarder about. And shank that. And so, the score is still going to be 7-6 going into the half. And then coming out of the half, Kennesaw State does connect and kick a field goal. It's they have 9 points. Wake Forest comes down, kicks a field goal. It's 10-9 Wake Forest. Kennesaw State gets the ball back with a few minutes. There's a couple opportunities in the fourth. So 10-9 in the fourth. There's a couple opportunities for Kennesaw State to go down the field and score, take the lead. But poor decision-making, poor timing for some offensive fouls as far as, a false start, a hold, etc. That was unfortunate, and it definitely backed them up to they weren't able to get out of those situations. But everything we talked about in the offseason kind of showed itself in this game. Like I said, the tempo was there. The idea to wear a defense out over time was there. The 3-3-5, not knowing kind of where pressure was coming from, was there. Honestly, I don't have a negative to say. I mean, they just played great. They should have won the game. The game should have been 13-10 Kennesaw State with a victory on the road at Wake Forest. That's how it should have ended. If you don't miss an extra point or a very makeable field goal, then, it's a victory. And I don't want to pile on to a kid who the field goal kicker is. Special teams is usually an issue in the first game of the season. The punting wasn't very good. I mean, special teams in general wasn't great. It was all right. But it definitely cost them, Kennesaw State, the game. I mean, I can clearly say that. But it doesn't take away my feeling leaving the stadium to where the Wake Forest fans definitely felt that they dodged a bullet. You could definitely get that vibe as they were yelling at the coaches, we got to play defense. This defense is terrible. What are we doing? What's that play call? I mean, I heard a lot of things from the crowd. But as I was leaving the game, I kept thinking to myself that Kennesaw State belonged there. And this projection of them winning only a few games this season is silly. I would have loved to have gotten the win there. It makes getting bowl eligible that much easier of a path. But if you're going to hang with Wake Forest like that, then once you get into conference play, if you're going to play like that, then yeah, I'm feeling good about my 6-6 call. Anything better would be great, but 6-6 I've been saying since I think February of last year. Once the schedule was released, it's probably March actually. I feel pretty good about that. And the defense looked, like I said, the defense will keep you in some games for sure. The offense will get better. Especially when you're going against light competition, the offense will get better. Going into this next week against Indiana, who knows? I have no idea what Indiana is. I haven't had a chance to watch their game from this weekend. They did not play well. They did struggle a little bit, so I like that. But traveling across, the country, or not really across, but going a good ways north, that's tough. That's tough for anybody, and that's a much bigger stadium and environment. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But going into conference play, I like Kennesaw State's chances. It's funny. I've watched a few games over the last week or so, and Western Kentucky may be a problem. I'm just going to say Western Kentucky has been the most impressive team I've seen in the conference. I saw Liberty struggle a little bit yesterday, which is the conference favorites. But I do not believe, and if you want to look here in the old Conference USA preview, look who the last place team is. That's the projected finish. I don't buy that at all. I just don't see that happening. I really don't. Not if they're going to play like that. I don't. The speed was there. The work ethic was there. Yeah, I mean, that's a team that's got some wins in it for sure. And so that's very exciting. It's a very exciting product they put on the field. I think that, the hand-wringing with the coaching change and Bohannon and getting away from the person who kind of started the program, I think that can be put in the past. I think that at the end of the day, Coach Bohannon in Division I won 2 games in 2 years. Any program is going to make a change. Kennesaw State does make a change, brings in Jerry Mack, who brings a whole different kind of attitude with him, brought in transfer portal players in the skill position and offensive line, defensive line. And I think that those were the right choices. The coordinators with their experience were the right choices versus having, I'm not taking a shot here, but it is the case, versus having your son, who was the quarterback at Kennesaw State in the very beginning, be your offensive coordinator. It's just not, it's not necessary to do that. That's a very small program look that you're going to go from, family without any experience in the coaching profession. I think that bringing in professional coaches, investing in the program, I think that is all the right moves. I think Mac has made all the right statements. Even after the game, proud of the effort. Obviously, we left some points on the field, some coach speak there. We'll get better, etc. But yeah, I mean, just a positive feeling, as positive as you can be at a loss in a game that you weren't even supposed to be in. And they definitely should have been in that game and were the better team, honestly. For the 4 quarters overall, Kennesaw State was the better team. And that's not something that most would have expected me to say in this podcast, or the experts out there who thought that it was just going to be a blowout and it's going to be very one-sided. So very, very pleased with the whole experience. And what a great time. What a great, great time. Great way to get the college football weekend started. Yes, I absorbed all the games I could yesterday. I'm going to shift away from Kennesaw State for just a second, because at the end, I'm still a college football fan. The Ohio State-Texas game, I wasn't blown away with that. I always thought playing in the horseshoe to open up the game is a tough ask for anybody. I feel that Arch Manning is getting a lot of hate right now online. But again, I mean, he's still a kid, he's just a kid making his first start in Columbus. He did not look great. He did not get settled in at all. There's obviously talent there. I mean, there's some throws that he makes that are just unreal, but Texas is going to be just fine. I'm not worried about Texas. Ohio State at home is a tough ask for anybody, unless you're Michigan, apparently. But yeah, I mean, walking into the defending national champion's house, thinking that you're gonna beat them, that's silly. And like I said, that wasn't a shock. I thought Ohio State's defense would be really good, and they were very good. Texas will be just fine. Ohio State, as always, is a team to watch out for. As we go through the rest of the landscape yesterday, obviously the biggest upset, or the biggest game with the way it turned out, was the Florida State-Alabama game and the Clemson-LSU game. I'm going to talk first about Clemson-LSU. First of all, I don't know what a catch is anymore. There's a throw that LSU makes that the receiver catches it, goes into the end zone, scores a touchdown. They call it an incomplete pass. I have no dog in the fight with Clemson or LSU. But that's a catch, or that's a touchdown. It just is. I mean, if we're calling things that tight, I don't even know what you have to do to make a catch anymore. My whole life, that's a touchdown. And it's funny, every broadcast you listen to, they have the expert there, the rules expert. He's like, that's a touchdown. They were called when they were looking at the review, they were just seeing to see if he got into the end zone, or if he stepped out the 1-inch line. That's all they were talking about. Oh yeah, he definitely got in. It's a touchdown, pass possession. And then the ref comes on and says that that it's an incomplete pass, and the commentator's like, wait, what? And so they go back and look at it. They're like, I don't know how that's an incomplete pass. That's a touchdown every day of the week. LSU does not get points out of that drive because they'd flipped it. They'd flipped the momentum, and then they get that awful call, because it was an awful call, and is unable to do anything with the ball after that. And that just really changed momentum of the game. LSU was the better team, though. They come down, they do score, win 17-10 over Clemson, who looked rattled. Coach Brian Kelly at the end of the game said that if you take away a team's running game and you just make them one-dimensional with passing, they become very predictable. And that's exactly what they did with Clemson. I think the moment was too big for Klubnik, who does make some boneheaded decisions. So it has his whole life, or his whole career that I've watched him. Talented, no doubt about it. Really talented. But still some boneheaded decisions a little bit. LSU is the better team, and they deserve to win that game. Again, Clemson will be just fine. It's an out-of-conference game. Not a big deal. Shifting over to the Florida State-Bama game, though, that was a surprise. I mean, that it just was. And again, this is where we got to be careful with these preseason predictions, rankings, magazines, all this stuff. I mean, again, I just showed you how Kansas State is supposed to be 12. Well, Alabama is one that people are predicting to win the national title before the season starts, because they're still stuck in this time frame that Alabama is unbeatable, that Saban's still on the sideline, that they're still having all these recruits. Not the case. Bama looked like they did not, well, I won't say that. I was about to say didn't belong in the field. That's not true. That's a lot of hyperbole there. Florida State dominated that game. They dominated on both lines of scrimmage. They ran down Bama's throat. Bama was held to less than 100 yards rushing. Florida State had over 200 yards rushing. And the game was, other than a muff punt where the game had the opportunity to be put away, that muff punt kind of changed some momentum a little bit and kept Bama alive, I guess. But it was clear who the better team was and who absolutely dominated that game physically. So tip your hat to Florida State. Welcome back. Glad to have you. But in the rest of the games, like last night, I was watching. Wasn't watching last night. Late game was UCLA. Nope, that's wrong. Washington and Colorado State. I watched that for a while. That was kind of a funky game. Washington comes away with a win. UCLA and Utah, which was very one-sided. It's funny to see. It is what it is. But that quarterback for Tennessee that created such a stink earlier that we talked about in previous podcasts did not look good. Was not worth the money, and UCLA looked like UCLA. Looked terrible. Got their head kicked in. And other than that, there weren't a lot of surprises. Some closer scores, but again, if it's week one, you're going to see some closer scores. You've got the usual big teams versus the small teams that are just coming to get a paycheck, and those games play out the way you think they play out, a lot to a little, basically as the scores, whether it's a Georgia Marshall complete dismantling. There's so many. Missouri played a high school team. They killed them. Florida played a high school team. They killed them. Florida looked dominant, but they should have looked dominant. So we'll see. That Florida LSU game looks like a heck of a game. Looking forward to that one. But just, it's great to be back. It's great to be back. If nothing else, it's great to be back. So as we wrap up here with the Who to Who KSU football podcast, I will do a preview of Indiana before the end of the week, so you can consume that before the game on Saturday. I'll do a reaction to the ending of that game, and we'll continue to keep this rhythm as we kind of move forward. You're looking at, again, we've talked about the schedule multiple times, but, these were supposed to be losses, and so I'm not all that concerned about it. I love the way that Kennesaw State looked against Wake Forest. Hopefully they look like that again. this week, and who knows what happens. But then you've got Merrimack at home. That's a win. Arkansas State. I like Kansas State. I mean, if they're going to play like this, they're going to be competitive in a lot of these games. Home against Arkansas State, home against Middle Tennessee State, home against Louisiana Tech. Who knows, right? I mean, again, let's see what Kansas State looks like this week before we make any sweeping judgments. But again, there's a lot of wins on that schedule if Kansas State's going to play the way they did against Wake Forest at Wake Forest. So, again, very excited about the season. Glad to be back in college football. Please like and subscribe. Support the program. Go to the Etsy store, buy a shirt, bumper sticker, anything you want. All proceeds go back into the show, and so I really appreciate it. I'm going to upload some videos to this video podcast about just kind of what the experience was like at the game, watching the team come out on the field. Just some clips I took while I was there. Thought it'd just be fun. So yeah, thank you guys for joining me this week. Any comments, shoot them at me. I'll respond as quickly as I can, but thank you for being a part of this. Go Owls. I mean, look great. Go Owls. Let's keep it going. All right, talk to you guys next week. Bye.